The following program was provided by an independent producer solely responsible for its content. The opinions expressed do not necessarily represent the views of this station, its staff, board of directors, or underwriters.
Hello and welcome to Perspectives. My name is David Schoeneman and I'm your host on this program. I'm also the alderman for Ward 3 here in Nashua. On Perspectives, we take a look at a variety of issues on a state, local, and a national level that are of importance to you, the resident and voter here in Nashua, and especially in Ward 3 in my ward. We do that so that we keep you informed when election time rolls around. And I think it's very important that we have an informed electorate and we choose candidates that really are going to look out for our best interests. Well, today we're going to take another look, as we will in the coming weeks, a more detailed look at the budget process here in Nashua for fiscal 2018. As you know, this is fiscal 2017 right now. Our budget season will officially kick off in a few weeks when we get the mayor's budget, but it has already begun. And if you watched the show last week, you saw that we had a discussion about Ordinance 17-031, which is proposed by the mayor, that will move some money around a particular fund called the sewer fund, which really has the benefit, and I don't call it a benefit, but those who are proposing it, I think, call it a benefit, of circumventing the spending cap. You've heard a lot of talk in the past weeks, certainly in the paper, about the difficult year we have coming up in fiscal 18. That's because many of our costs are rising faster than the cost of living index, which is used to calculate the spending cap. We find that with salaries, we find that with various budgets, we even find that with our pension fund, and we'll certainly talk about all these things as the weeks roll on. But there is a move to circumvent the spending cap to try to get around the taxpayer and the higher threshold that extra spending would normally require. That extra threshold is a vote of 2/3 of the Board of Aldermen, 10 votes, as opposed to just a simple majority of 8. The legislation we spoke about last week could pass with a simple majority of 8, whereas a normal spending cap override would require 10 votes. I'm not in favor of any circumvention of the rules and laws that we have. I don't think that's right. Circumventing the spending cap is circumventing you, the taxpayer. I don't approve of that. Today we're going to take a look further at the budget, and we're going to see where the mayor, I believe, intends to send some of this extra money that he wants to make available through circumventing the spending cap. Some of that he intends to send to the school district. We listened to his State of the City address. Many of you probably did or read it in the papers. And we know that the school department, the superintendent came out with a budget that was below the cap, and the mayor has, if you saw the paper the other day, told school department, no, you can go above it, you can go up to 1.9%. Where is some of this money going to go? We're here today with the member of the school board to help us discuss that. I'm here with Doris Hohensee. Doris Hohensee is a member of the Nashua School Board, elected position with a 4-year term, and has been serving, I think, faithfully, trying to find the best way to meet the needs of the taxpayers who demand value in education and the needs of the school department, which of course has to pay for a valuable education. Doris, thank you for coming in and welcome.
Well, thank you for inviting me.
All right, so we're in the midst of budget season now. We have not seen the mayor's budget yet at City Hall, but you have seen the budget that comes from the superintendent. The superintendent prepares the budget.
Yes, we've had a budget since January 25th.
Okay, and the spending cap, how does the original budget, let's say that was presented in January, compare to the spending cap number?
We have had a 1.2% budget increase presented in January. It was later adjusted to 1.4. After the mayor came to visit us, the superintendent raised it to 1.9. He told us that he would be a strong advocate for our budget and giving us more money if we did 4 things. If we reinstated the Clearway program, which is high school program, special needs, and other high school students that can't function in the busy high schools that we have. It's a very successful program that we've had for 40 years. That was eliminated in our budget. If we reinstate the 9 custodians that were taken out of the budget, we reinstate 2 peer coaches, which are essential to our district. And the last one, Clearway,
Reading
Peer coach.
program, third grade reading?
Oh, no. It's the all-day kindergarten.
Oh, all-day kindergarten.
He's very much a proponent of the all-day kindergarten. So we've got a budget that was $105 million last year, plus benefits and pension on your side of the aisle. And it's going to go up to maybe $106 million at 1.9% increase. We've had a lot of feedback for the peer coaches. Now,
What is a peer coach?
peer coach helps the new teachers that come on board so that we retain them, so we don't have to keep hiring new ones.
Is this a full-time position?
We have 2 of them.
And they don't teach, they just are coaches.
They are excellent mentors. They work, they give reviews, they give advice, they give seminars, they give professional development. They work with all the new teachers, plus the older teachers. They also help with recertification. I sat down and met with them for 2.5 hours. I was flabbergasted at how much they do. But also, we have to submit to the state a program, which I have here. It's how we manage the evaluation of our district. And it's called the Professional Development Master Plan. It's a 5-year program. It's riddled with peer coaches. You can see it's highlighted. They're highlighted everywhere. So we sent a plan to the state to say that we are working with our peer coaches to make the best teachers we have, to work with our peer coaches, develop our teachers, and they've improved our retention rate of teachers. We used to lose a goodly amount, and it's dropped enormously. So this is a very beneficial program. These peer coaches are well respected among our teachers, and they just do enormous benefit for our district.
Let me ask you a question here. One of the things we talk about a lot is quality of education. And the school district, as I know you know, and the school board knows, certainly the Board of Aldermen knows, I don't know if the public knows, is not ranked real high. I know we have economic issues and all the rest of it, but we are in the bottom 30% in the state as a district.
It's sad, but there's a couple of things. Number one, we do have a lot of special needs
I know.
and
Yep.
ELL students.
All those
and that
things are
pulls us
factored
down.
in there. All that's true, but some of the charter schools do very well. And one of the aspects of the charter schools is that they don't have multi-year contracts on their teachers. They have annual contracts. I don't know if they have peer coaches or not, but every year, all the teachers that were there the previous year, or maybe not all, but teachers that they want to keep, they're offered to renew for the next year. And those teachers come in with an expertise. I don't think they come into the charter school expecting to be trained. They come in with an expertise, either industry or teaching, because not every teacher in the charter school is a licensed teacher. Many of them are professionals in their industries. And I'm wondering if that's part of their success, is turnover, and your notes speak for the charter schools, but is it okay to have turnover in a teacher? Presumably, if someone's in 5th grade this year and goes to 6th grade next year, they're not going to have the same teacher. No. So is the continuity that critical? And is keeping them for this length of time essential? And I ask that question because the charter schools that don't do that are very successful for many reasons, but I'm wondering if that's one of them.
Well, we don't have an option of whether or not we're going to negotiate with our unions. I walked into the board and we have 6 unions. So we don't have that option. But given where we are, those peer coaches are invaluable. They pass on tricks of the trade and suggestions, and you can be more effective if you do this. You've got that problem. This is what we've done in the past. And it just, I mean, it's like anything that, housewives that used to get together and pass on their trade secrets on cleaning or whatever. It's just, it's something that it's really beneficial to do. And I'm sure the charters mentor each other to some capacity. We have 980 people in our teachers union. We have a lot of people to mentor. So it's beneficial to us, and those 2 positions are well worth it, and they are now back in the budget.
Good. Do any of the measures that the mayor proposed or that you mentioned, the clearways and coaches and all-day kindergarten and the custodians, is there any measurable effect that those 4 extra expenses are going to have on our outcomes?
The peer coaches will. I'm certain they will help our teachers. be more effective teachers. Clearway, these are students, we have 65 slots over there, 50 regular students and 15 identified as special ed. They've gone over there for the past 40 years that we've had a relationship with them. And it's a very successful program. We had about 16 or 18 parents, teachers, and former students come and testify last night before the board. Heart-wrenching stories about kids that were in foster care. They had the worst. Parents were murdered, and they came through that program, and they could finally put their lives together. And it's inexpensive. We have out-of-district costs that are skyrocketing. Our out-of-district costs went up $750,000 above our budget for last year. So I understand the concern, but I don't believe the Clearway program fits that category because it is cost-effective.
What is the cost per student in Clearway?
$6,000.
$6,000 cost.
High school student, and it's $12,000 average cost in our high school. And you can't just take one or two students and pull that up or down. It's rather inflexible.
Sure,
but
sure. No, I understand that. But the cost per student at Clearway is half of the cost. Maybe we should expand Clearway.
it's a fixed building. They also have our special ed, and the cost there is $20,000 a year per student. The closest program would be in Chelmsford, I believe, at $40,000 a student.
Okay, so Clearway is clearly a cost-effective option. It also speaks to the idea that in education, one size doesn't fit all.
It definitely does not.
So the regular national school district certainly acts on the factory one-size-fits-all model, with the exception of Clearway.
They were hoping to bring that program back, set up a program in South, National High School South, and try to do that. But then you're bringing a small group back and sort of segregating them.
Right.
And it's awkward. This way they've got their own space, they've got a proven program, and the costs are far less expensive than it would be to bring it back.
Is there a perception that Clearway is competition? And is there a desire to eliminate competition here?
I don't understand it. I know the numbers that I was given as a board member, I don't trust, because they're telling me they can do for $300,000, excuse me, they can take 50 students in a program. But they don't count benefits and pensions. It's another $150,000.
Yeah.
Plus they're losing below average teacher costs at another $50,000. So they didn't account for $200,000. So now you've got $500,000.
Okay, so there's some things that aren't 100% clear on the analysis of this particular choice.
So,
well,
yes.
it sounds like the Clearway decision. Sounds like they ought to keep that.
I think we will. I think it's early in the cycle, although it's really heartbreaking for the students not knowing where they'll be next year.
I understand
And
that.
being in that position, or, am I gonna they won't come back. They've said they won't come back to the high school. It failed them.
It failed them, and I think that's what's key. I'm glad to see programs like Clearway. We already talked about charter schools. I'm glad to see charter schools. Charter schools aren't for everybody. Clearway's not for everybody. But it's also true that our regular high schools aren't for everybody either. And I think if we as a city or community have some options available, that's good. And Clearway sounds like a good one.
This program, it's the Adult Learning Center. They have Clearway. They have after-school care in our schools, all 12 of our elementary schools. They provide that service at a cost to parents. So they keep the students till 5 o'clock when the parents are available. They've got...
Clearway does this?
The Adult Learning Center is the umbrella organization. Clearway is a part.
Oh, I see.
Then they also have a summer program that's fabulous. We have people come and talk about that. So if they lose Clearway, that summer program dies too, which it's very effective, and it's for single mothers or people that are, that fit a certain profile. And it's an asset to our community. We've had this relationship for 40 years, so I'm hoping that we'll get that back.
Let's talk about the custodians a little bit. How many custodians do we have?
We have 101.
Okay, and the original budget in January had 9 positions being eliminated, is that right?
9. And the mayor wants those back.
Okay, let's talk a little bit about custodians. About a year ago, the school board put the custodian contract, or custodial services, let's say, out to bid. And presumably there was an assumption that some money could be saved if we were to get to a market rate for custodial services. Right. And out of the number of responses that came back. Maybe one or two were thrown out off the bat, but the range of savings, my understanding, was from a low savings of about $500,000 per year to a high savings of about $3 million per year. That's $3 million per year.
Right.
If we were simply to try to get custodial services at a market rate, and clearly we're above market rate. I wonder if maybe some of the school department or school board folks were surprised at how large the savings could be. I was surprised when I heard it could be $3 million. Do you know what the total amount for custodians is per year?
I don't have that on the top of my head. I'm sorry.
I'm not sure what it is either. I'm not
But
sure.
the big problem is if they're above market rate, how did they get there?
Excellent question.
Why doesn't the board take responsibility for that? So I went back and I looked at the past 6 contracts
Okay.
over 20 years,
So 20 years, in the space of the last 20 years, back to 1996,
right?
we've had 6 contracts. So some of them range from 4 or 5 years to 2 years to
3, 4, yeah, 3
Okay.
or 4 years.
So 6 contracts over 20 years, and what did you find out?
I found out at 15 out of the last 20 years, we gave raises that were above the spending cap.
Let's say this again. 15 out of the last 20 years, custodian raises were above the spending cap
Yes.
percentage. And let's talk about the spending cap for a moment. This number, it's not the same number every year. It's
No.
a percentage. It's an indexed percentage that's used to be, it was just recently changed. It used to be basically a consumer price index. It's you take a basket of goods, a proverbial basket of goods, and say in the course of a year, this basket of goods went up by X percent. Therefore, it's reasonable in a really government and public employee that they don't compete. So to say some raise here is appropriate, but the appropriate raise should be equal to the overall increase in the basket of goods.
Well,
So if it's 1.5%,
right.
then this should be 1.5%.
So sometimes your salaries would be up and your utilities would be down. I mean, it's an average.
Sure, it's a
but if
basket
you're
of goods.
over it 15 times out of 20, there's a little bit of excess here. They had a 4-year contract with 5% a year for 4 years
4-year
straight.
contract, 5% per year.
Yeah, it's 20% right there.
Over 4 years, 20% over 4 years.
Spending cap was never 5% in that 20 years. The highest was 3.4. On the board, we have 3 contracts that were signed. We currently have 3 board members that signed 3 contracts. They are responsible for these contracts.
So the school board is responsible for the contracts. I will say, too, the Board of Aldermen usually just
I guess you
rubber
have your
stamps these
share.
things, and these things are approved. And I think it can be excessive. Let's talk about the totals over the 20-year period of time. What is the cumulative effect of the spending cap, compounded and all that?
Over 20 years, it's 63%.
So the spending cap, the basket of goods went up 63%, and I suppose that's about right. You look back to the late 90s, what did electricity cost, or a
Right.
gallon of milk, all these kinds of things. It's all up. So 63% increase, little by
Right.
little. And what about the
76% raises.
76% raises?
So that's
over 20 years?
13% over the cap.
And when we go over the cap, wow, that's huge. When we go over the cap, remember, we're not just going over an arbitrary number. We're going over an economic index.
Right.
And that's why when you all went out to bid last year, you found we could be saving right now, this fiscal year, $3 million.
Well, we're in
Per
court, and so we can't.
Right. But I'm
But-
saying that's the number, that's the magnitude of the mistake over time.
The problem is compounded. Like when we privatized our buses, the first contract is low and then it goes up. Sometimes a lot faster and you lose control over it. Plus, we do have custodians that are very dedicated. They know the students and they work very hard. And
I don't doubt any of that.
so
but-
when you switch, you're getting a different caliber of care for your buildings. My concern is now, we can't just throw out 9 custodians and say, okay, the schools can be a little bit more dirty for the students, without taking responsibility as a board for creating the problem.
Right.
It's the creation of the problem that we need to shoulder some of the
There was
responsibility.
a teacher who was, she came to speak at the budget hearing, public hearing for the city. You may have been there a couple years ago. She was very adamant, I would say rude, pretty nasty, frankly.
Happens.
But one thing that she said, and I try to listen to what folks have to say, and I try to find, even if they're mad, or upset, maybe there's a nugget of truth in there somewhere. And as angry and as upset and as disruptive, really, as she was, she did say to the mayor and the Board of Aldermen, look, you guys approved these contracts, now pay up.
Yeah.
And
There's truth
and
to
it's
that.
absolutely true.
Yeah.
The Board of Aldermen approved these things, and it's time to pay up. Unfortunately, the Board of Aldermen, you used the phrase earlier, like to be big tippers.
Yeah, you go out to a restaurant, you got a pretty little waitress, and you want to be a big tipper.
You
want to be thought favorably after you leave that
Yes,
restaurant.
and that's what happens in these contract negotiations.
Yeah.
It sounds like it happened in the custodial contract where we gave them 5% for 4 years, 5% each year for 4 years. And I think that happens in other unions too. I think there are members of the Board of Aldermen, maybe members of the school board. Do any of the members of the school board get contributions, campaign contributions from unions?
They do. I'm not tracking it. I don't know.
Okay, well, I do know that at least 6 members of the Board of Aldermen get campaign contributions from the teachers union. Now, that has come up before in public comment,
Yeah.
and there are those who say that that doesn't prove why we voted the way we did. However, there is correlation. Actually,
Yeah.
correlation is not causation. You can't say these things are correlated, therefore this causes this. You cannot say that logically. But you can point out correlation. There's a very high degree of correlation between money that the teachers union give to the Board of Aldermen, members of the Board of Aldermen,
The predictability of the votes.
and
yeah.
the predictability of the votes. Very high correlation. Is it causation? In my heart of hearts, I believe it is. But we can't necessarily say that there is correlation.
And the biggest program we have this year is the kindergarten, all-day kindergarten. Now, every board member loves education, and they don't want kids to not get off to a good start. But this program wasn't vetted in committee. It's a big cost. What we're doing is we're increasing class size to put in a non-mandatory year.
Non-mandatory, okay.
In some districts, like I think Merrimack, they have a full day. They offer half day for free, and then they give the other half. You pay $70 a week or something like that.
That sounds reasonable
So
to me.
$280, $300 a month,
Sure.
and you're there all day. So it's not a discontinuous program. The student is there for the full day. We could offer something like that.
Sure could.
Because right now we're getting rid of a lot of people that are in critical places, like the elementary school teachers, the middle school teachers are expected to throw some teachers into the pot to make more kindergarten teachers so we can make this program work.
Let me ask you a question. I don't know if you know what our teacher staff, what the numbers of teachers have done over the last 20 years, but in the last 20 years, my understanding is that enrollment in Nashua has gone down by 2,000.
Right.
So if our enrollment has gone down by 2,000, has our teacher population shrunk at the same rate, or has it shrunk a little bit less than that?
I don't think it's shrunk at exactly the same rate. I think we've had more special ed and ELL teachers.
So while our population
preschool
goes
and
down,
kindergarten.
teachers may have gone down, but not that much. So do some of these teachers have time in their day?
No, I believe I think our teachers are great. I think they're very hardworking, and they didn't set up the system. They're just doing the best they can within the system for our students.
Is it possible, would you think, that some of the big tipping mentality that caused custodians to be paid above market rate has also
I think they need to think
happened in the teacher salaries?
sustainability. It's nice to be a big tipper,
Right.
but they've got to see the big picture. So now we've got this blowout from the custodials, and we're trying to blame it on them, take it out on them,
Right.
because we're shortchanged. Well, okay, but
It's not their fault.
take response. It's two-sided.
It's two-sided. Yeah, for teachers, I'm an advocate for charter school. I'm an advocate for education, and I'm an advocate for the taxpayer too. This is very important. That's why I'm so adamant about not circumventing the cap. That's wrong. It's wrong. But I am very definitely an advocate for education. I've got a son now. I want to send him to school.
That's wonderful.
We're probably going to homeschool him or send him to a charter school because I don't want him to go to a school that's ranked in the bottom 20% of the state, especially when it's so expensive. It's very disheartening to see these things so expensive. If we were to take all of our teachers and pay them the same rate as the highest paid teacher in the best school in the state, which is a local charter school, we'd save in excess of $20 million per year using the same logic that we did with the
What
custodians.
they'd immediately say is those teachers, and probably rightfully so, would leave and go to other districts that still would offer higher pay.
But what I'm saying is there are teachers that are out there who are willing to be hired
Yes.
at a market rate, which is way less than what we're paying.
But those teachers have more flexibility and are able to adapt their class to their students. And you lose a little bit in the public school. You don't have that independence. So there's a trade-off. They're going into a different market with a different expectation.
Yeah, one thing I heard one of the other aldermen say, he said, I'd really like to know what it is that the charter schools do to attract high-quality teachers at a low rate. Is it that much? How do they make the environment better?
It's the same with private schools. It's the same with homeschoolers. When you put your heart and soul into it, you do a good job. And we have many public school teachers that do put their heart and soul into it. And they do the best job and a good job for their students. So I don't want to...
No, I'm not trying to trash them.
We do have some... my children went to the school, and I've met some fabulous teachers there.
I'm sure there are. I would not want my son to have to be in a class with the woman who spoke at the hearing 2 years ago. That'd be a horrible experience for him. I want to protect him from that kind of a person. But I'm sure there are some who are great, but there are also some who are great in the charter schools. And again, I'm looking for value. We want to see our kids educated well. Real quickly, we're almost out of time here. Do you expect that an all-day kindergarten? Well, first off, it hasn't been vetted. There's clearly, I mean, it's a big undertaking.
I'm very disappointed that you're pushing things through budget instead of collaboratively working with the board. They say this is what we wanted because we want third graders to read on schedule.
Will this help third graders read on schedule?
They say it will. I think that the studies are mixed.
Will it help the outcomes? Will it help raise us out of the bottom 30%?
I say that you try too young to teach reading, and they're putting first grade reading now into kindergarten. Some children are going to be adversely affected. I wouldn't do it to my own children.
How many students might this add to the public?
They expect 100. I think there's 57 private kindergartens and preschools and schools around Nashua. We could get more.
That's a very interesting point, too, because some of these kids who might come to a free all-day kindergarten program are currently enrolled in a daycare or an academy, preschool academy type of thing, or other school where those businesses pay people. They're renting space. It could take some of these. It could close some of these businesses.
Yes.
This could be bad for Nashua's economy.
Just like Clearway. Changing it, we could knock them out.
Right. Do we want to knock a company like Clearway out? Do we want to knock?
For 50 years teaching our
Here's
children.
one that I know is popular, White Wing.
Yeah.
White Wing is over at the one of the churches in town, right? And it's a popular school, and some of these kids go there. I'm sure they pay for that. I presume that they pay for that. So they could come into the free program, and this could hurt a business like White Wing or Greater Nashua Child Care Center or Nashua Kinder Castle. Actually, they don't have any students listed there, but Kinder Care Learning Center. Lots of places, Wise Owl Preschool, where there are kids that are enrolled and in businesses that are supporting the economy, and it may actually harm them. Doris, we're out of time.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for coming in. I really appreciate hearing about this. I'd like to have you on again sometime because the school budget it's the largest part of Nashua's budget. And I think that since there's no competition, and I think that since the school department seems to want to eliminate competition, either in the charter school or in a place like Clearway, it tells me they recognize they're not really fully able to compete. And if we don't compete, we're not going to get the value that we need. We're not going to have the outcomes that we want. We're not going to have the costs that we need either. So clearly a lot to work on here. The budget is education budget is very, very important. Our school budget,
We need to make the best use of every dollar we get.
You betcha, because
That's
we only
my goal.
spend a dollar once.
Right.
Can't spend it twice. And it sounds like if we're able to manipulate the spending cap, maybe there's a belief that we can spend the same dollar twice. Doesn't happen. That's not your department. That's the Board of Aldermen, and we're going to be fighting that one. So thank you very much for coming in. Folks, I want to thank you also for tuning in. This is Perspectives. I'm David Schoeneman, your host and a Ward 3 Alderman here in Nashua. I've been speaking with Doris Hohensee, a member of the school board, elected member of the school board, about the school budget and how it affects you, your students, and of course your tax rate as we move forward. If you have any questions or comments, we'd be glad to hear them. Please reach out to me at perspectivesnh@gmail.com. Thanks, and see you next week.
The preceding program was provided by an independent producer solely responsible for its content. The opinions expressed do not necessarily represent the views of this station, its staff, board of directors, or underwriters.